Baking a cake can feel overwhelming because the recipes are often difficult. And cakes are usually for a special event or occasion, so the pressure is on. That's why these following tips are so important so you get the cake right on the first try. It may seem obvious, but follow the recipe closely and avoid making substitutions. Even the slightest variance can alter the cake's final taste and texture. This also includes using the correct baking pan. Use the size that the recipe calls for. Pay attention to the temperature of ingredients. If a recipe calls for room temperature butter, it makes a big difference, and I stress this in a lot of my blog posts. This includes your other cold ingredients, including eggs or sour cream or milk. Make sure they're at room temperature if the butter is also at room temperature. To bring eggs to room temperature quickly, I stick them in a bowl of warm water for about 10 minutes before beginning. Mismeasuring ingredients is a common baking mistake, but can easily be avoided. For flour, make sure that you're spooning and leveling your flour into a measuring cup instead of packing it down. There are many different types of flours, and if a cake recipe specifically calls for cake flour, make sure you use that instead of the common all-purpose flour. Cake flour is a low-protein flour that's milled into a delicate consistency that's perfect for fluffy and soft cakes. Mix your ingredients just until combined. Don't overmix or undermix. If you overmix, you're deflating all the air in the batter and overdeveloping the gluten, which will result in a dense cake. Lining the pan with parchment paper provides an ultra non-stick environment and helps you release the cake seamlessly from the cake pan. And you don't need to purchase these separately. Use parchment paper and cut it into whatever shape you need. Lightly spray your cake pan with non-stick spray, lay your parchment paper down, and give that a light spray as well. This next tip is extra important. Don't open the oven during bake time because that lets in cool air and it interrupts the cake baking process. Using an oven light is a good way to keep an eye on your baking cake. An oven thermometer is the best way to ensure that your oven is at the correct temperature the entire time. There are 2 guaranteed ways to check for cake doneness. First, you can use a toothpick. Insert it into the center of the cake. If the toothpick comes out clean, the cake is done. Second, you can use the bounce back test, which means lightly poking the cake with your finger. If the cake bounces back, it's done. It's best to let the cake cool completely in the pan before releasing it. If I'm in an absolute rush, I let the cake cool for 30 minutes in the cake pan and then invert the cake onto a lined baking sheet. Place the baking sheet in the freezer for about 45 minutes and your cake should be cool. A cake carrier is helpful in 2 ways. First, it helps you transport the cake easily, and second, it's a great place to store your cake without ruining the frosting. I understand that baking cakes can be tricky, and that's why I go into even more detail in all of my cake recipes so you can have that extra boost of confidence.